Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Obsidian Project. I am super happy to be having this conversation today. My name is Jared Henderson. I'm one of the co-founders of the Obsidian Project. Shout out to Mr. Dudley Brooks, another co-founder, and Miss Denise Keenan. We're here to have a conversation about what is great photography, part 2. And so I have some fantastic guests with me today. And make sure I bring them on, and we have some introductions to make sure that we get to know each other better, as well as a question I have for you about the most difficult or crazy request that you've ever gotten from an artist before a shoot. Most difficult or crazy request. You don't have to say this, but if they wanted like 1,000 hot wings, then it might have been kind of insane. I will start by introducing Ms. Zizi Zarkadas. Zizi, from Love Artist Agency, who is the founder there, has an extensive background in the fashion and photography industry, from running a photo rental studio in New York City, which included regular clients Peter Lindbergh, Allure, Bloomingdale's, Saks Fifth Avenue, and has also worked as a fashion stylist in New York City and a hair and makeup agent for a small boutique agency representing some of the biggest A-list artists in the world. She moved to Los Angeles with the beautiful weather in LA, where she has been based for the last 18 years, and continues to work as a photography agent with an array of clients, including networks, major music labels, beauty companies, ad agencies, fashion retailers, magazines, and music and celebrity PR firms. Hey, Ms. Izzy, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. What is the most outrageous request that you've gotten from an artist before a shoot?
Do you want me to be honest?
Absolutely.
Do I have to say the artist? You already know the story. Okay. I thought I was having a heart attack one day, a very stressful time, and a certain celebrity needed to know what the catering was going to be, what the caterer was bringing. So I'm literally walking into the emergency room, and I have the photo director from this magazine calling me, telling me, well, she needs to know. And I said, I can't talk to you right now. I think I'm having a heart attack. Well, she needs to know. You need to send what the caterer is bringing. And again, I said, I'm literally, when you go to the hospital and the door's open, I'm walking into the hospital. Okay, we'll send it over when you're done.
When you're done having your heart attack.
When you're done.
Hopefully you make it so you can send us that document.
Yes, I made it. I'm still here.
Yes, thankfully.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for being here. Miss Audra Jones, how many pronounce your last name so I mess it up?
Dosunmu.
Dosunmu.
Yeah, that's good.
Mess it up. So Ms. Audra has navigated the fashion industry for over 35 years, beginning her sophomore year at FIT as a fashion show coordinator. Audra has lived as a stills producer, photographer rep, stylist, agent, casting associate, and talent manager. Production is and always will be her greatest love in the business. Hey, Ms. Audra.
Hey, thanks for having me, and shout out to Dudley for sure.
Shout out to Dudley Brooks.
Yes, Dudley Brooks, the man.
What's the most ridiculous request you've ever gotten from an artist before a shoot?
Well, there's a lot of stories, but I'll start with, or just share, a huge R&B guy who told me that he needed so much food. So many different, it's always food, right? Like so many different kinds of snacks and chicken wings and sodas and meats and breads, and then ate none of it. Not a thing. Didn't eat anything. And it was so ridiculous. There were even requests for like M&Ms, like that old one, like take all the green ones out. I don't want to see any green M&Ms. I mean, it was like almost like he was just making the whole thing up, and then didn't eat anything, brought in Chinese food.
Didn't ask for Chinese, but brought in Chinese.
No, didn't ask for it. Had someone go get it from his person deep entourage, and I just see all this food coming in. I'm like, but there's so much food, and they're like, no, he wants this. I'm like, okay, whatever. It was terrible.
He was just testing you. He was like, let me see if they actually do this.
Yes, I did.
I have to come up with one that I can use whenever I get that to that level.
Yeah, you need something random. You need something real random.
Super random. Dom, how
What's
you
up,
doing?
man? I'm living life, man. I'm feeling good.
Good. Thank you for being here, man. James Dominique Malone was born and raised in Southeast San Diego, the inner city of America's finest city. The duality he experienced while living in Southeast San Diego shapes the lens from which he sees and views his life and community leadership. Dom digs deep to fill up the missing perspectives within the media and contemporary art world, representing a group of Black contemporary artists known as tunnel vision artists. TVA captures and showcases the power of Black artists and provides art lovers with an opportunity to access art in non-traditional ways. What's up, Dom?
Hey, what's good? Hey, that was good. I don't know who wrote that. I didn't write that. That was good. I was listening to myself like, oh yeah, that's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. I think I do that. Yeah.
Look, it's on your website. I didn't make it up.
My lady probably wrote it for me. You know, she's gonna put the dubs on it. You know.
Shout out to the missus.
Yeah.
Yeah, always.
What's the most outrageous request that you've ever gotten, Dom?
Shrooms, but I'm not gonna tell you if I provided them or not. So I'm gonna leave it there.
Well, I mean,
hey, you know, you leave it there.
There you go. It's all good. We won't touch it. I think mine is going to be something along the lines of having my celebrity crush on standby, just in case I need some encouragement.
Yeah.
They know who my celebrity crush is. So welcome, everyone. We started part one of our conversation of what is great photography by simply asking that question: what makes you a good photographer? You know, in this age of Instagram and social media, often we equate likes and followers to greatness, right? And so our first group of super bomb photographers, you can watch that conversation that we had from last month on our YouTube channel or Facebook page, talked about this idea of representation and touched on this idea of representation. And for me, as a photographer, as a videographer, representation can mean a lot of things, right? It can mean what you see, but then also what's underneath the surface, what's going on with photography. So often we talk about the photographer and the creators, but we don't really talk about the people who provide those opportunities and put those people in positions to be successful. And so that's why we wanted to grab some of the best in the business to talk about their experience with their own careers in helping representation matter in our photo industry. So I'm very introductory, elementary in this conversation. So when I ask elementary questions, for those of you who are watching, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. We'll make sure to have our guest answer them a little bit later in the program. So first of all, I'll ask a very basic question. What is a photography agent, right? Explain to me what it is that you all do, or an artist agent, and tell me a little bit about what this means.
Who do you want to go first?
Ladies first. Yeah, I'm gonna use that as my cop out. So go ahead.
All right, I'll go first.
Zizi.
Basically, you're in a partnership, and your agent is your buffer between you and the client, making sure that you're getting the proper rate. Also, and we're editors, basically. And we discussed this earlier, excuse my little senior dog trotting by, that sometimes photographers have a personal disassociation with certain images. So we're like the objective eye. Also, as an agent, maybe you're meeting with a prospective client, and they're telling you, oh, everything's great, I love everything. They're not going to tell you what they like and what they don't like.
Boom,
but
that part.
And I do this as an agent. Oh my goodness, one of my dogs needs to go outside. I do this. I will ask, be honest with me. What did you like? What did you not like? What do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of?
Very true.
And sometimes that hurts talent's feelings, but they're not going to grow or get anywhere without honest feedback.
I agree.
How do you feel about that, Audra?
I agree, and I like the use of the word buffer because I think that's a really fair assessment of what we do, because we serve as kind of a soft place for people to bounce their needs off of for the photographer and for the client. And while we represent the photographer first and foremost, our goal is to always make it a smooth and comfortable and return connection, right? So you don't want to work for everybody one time. So you want to make sure that everyone feels heard, everyone feels honored in the process. That's very important. And, you know, I always think that having an agent or having talent work with you, it's like one of the most important relationships you'll ever have, you know, beyond your family and your life partner or your spouse. It's like, that's like a super significant relationship, and the conversation and the communication between you is really important. You know, there has to be a comfort level and a freedom at the same time.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I love those two responses. I think, like you said, the being a buffer is real. I like to think of myself sometimes as like a translator of an art form. I know sometimes an artist may have the immaculate concepts and it's executable, but it may not be exactly what the client is looking for sometimes. I think, and sometimes the client may not know how to process a piece of art or a piece of content that was created, and they may miss some things that did answer the call for what they wanted. So I look at myself as a translator. Myself as an agent, I also do a lot of business contracts. So like Zizi said, making sure that there aren't line items in that contract that's going to kind of screw you in the end game or hold you too accountable for somebody else's business. And also just making sure that both parties understand what each other's roles are and that there needs to be a level of communication that's extremely high and vulnerable in the process. So that's kind of how the role I play.
Thank you, everyone. I'm always curious, like, because not only is it like you have an agency, but you also have this collection of like really beautiful bomb, you know, image makers, commercial artists, things like that. How are you going about finding talent, being introduced to talent, and how does that relationship work with onboarding? Right, you say, hey, I like your work, come join my creative agency or my media agency. For those who aren't aware how that works and how that's possible, what does somebody have to do to get into an agency?
Great question.
Usually a referral from someone else's business.
Yeah, that's true.
And we're agents. We get bombarded with emails. You know, sometimes you come across someone on Instagram. Myself, I love young, you know, new artists. I like to take people. I'm not the agent who is going to say, well, what clients are you bringing to me?
That's real.
I root for the underdog. So maybe it's not, you know, maybe not a smart business move all the time, but I like to, what's the word? Not nourish, but
develop
and nurture new artists that need help, because the big artist with the existing clientele, like they can get an agent easily.
That's true. That's
so
true.
That's always been my jam.
Yeah, I feel.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, please respond.
Okay, so Zizi, I feel like you were the artist who I have helped in business and gained a client base. They usually come from relationships already built within the art community. I had my start within this art world came from me myself being a photographer, and when that happened, I met an immaculate amount of talented artists. I'm talking about crazy artists, and I from that, you kind of see who has the maturity level to take business seriously and who's really dedicated to their craft. And from that point, it's like, okay, well, you're already creating for yourself and you're creating intentionally for yourself. I see you also have the discipline to create for somebody else. You're looking at some of our activations where we have created our own experiences around the bodies of work that some of the artists have produced. But so they come from personal relationships, just enjoying the power of somebody's work. And then we produce this experience that you're kind of seeing now. This is like an activation we held at South by Southwest Music Festival. And then it comes from, hey, I know a guy who's really talented. You know, he's like really into this particular body of art. I'm like, well, that's cool. Let's see, can we build a relationship and then connect those dots? So that's kind of how I've really been able to meet. This is one of the art shows we produce. So a lot of the photographers we work with, they really entrench themselves in their artistry first. And then we kind of pull out the skill set and say, oh, if you could do that, then you could do this over here. And then we connect those dots. So and a lot of time how we meet our clients are through these experiences that we produce. So we may produce an art show for 30 days. And in that, we're inviting out all the clients that we actually want to produce with. This body of work you see right here came from a project we produced called the Patriotism Project, where it was more conceptual. And we basically gave people the American flag and said, show us how this flag represents you or symbolizes you. And from that, we created a project around that. And Zizi, just how you're saying, this is part of the artist development too, you know, because we create for ourselves, and then we can critique the editing, and then we can critique the work ethic, and then we can talk about how to better arrange a photo or deal with a client. So a lot of it comes from, okay, let's produce for ourselves. You're an immaculate artist, but now let's build up that business acumen so we can now attach your skill set to clients who, you know, want an aesthetic that you produce.
Yeah, Miss Audra, do likes matter? Is that, how do you find your talent? Is it, if I have 1 million followers, is that going to help me out?
It doesn't matter to me, but it matters to clients. You know, for me, all of my relationships with my artists are very, very personal. Excuse me. In fact, 97% of them are my friends first and foremost, you know, particularly with the management part of the work I do. Production, again, I mean, it's like production with friends for me. Like I really work with my people first and foremost, you know, and it's weird, but it's worked for me that way. This is a set that we just did the launch of Ami Cole, which is a Black-owned, women-run, very beautiful cosmetic line, and it was kind of amazing to me because with like just 1 or 2 exceptions, everyone on that set, from the photographer to the caterer, were Black, you know, and we were really focused on trying to make sure that we had a team that was not only qualified for the job, but also kind of hit that point. You know, we wanted to work that way in this set, and it's incredible. We beautiful models, like all influencers, all young girls who are just like making their way. They all have other talents, you know, but they come together to make this beautiful art. So that was really important. Yeah, I mean, most of my people are my friends, first and foremost. That's just how it worked out.
Well, you have to deal with them day in and day out.
Yeah, it's a 24-hour love affair.
I'm sure as agents, we've all had talent that we really kind of didn't like.
Yes, as an agent, we're working with someone else. This one is like my goddaughter, you know, who's just blown up as an actress, and she was in Spike Lee's She's Gotta Have It Netflix production.
That's cool.
Seasons. Yeah, and she's just, 16 years old, and she's doing amazing things, and she's driven, and she literally, like, I've known her since the day she was born. You know, I know her mama, her grandma, her sisters, you know, it's that family. This is Mark Baptiste shooting Cassie in the desert, you know, family. You know, for Clam, which is my husband's magazine. Andrew and Andy have had this magazine for like, I don't know, 30 years now. It's crazy.
Wow.
But that was a really special shoot. I wasn't even there. That's how tight, you know, that's how in sync the communication was. I wasn't even in the desert with them. I was in Brooklyn, and you know, we managed to get these beautiful pictures.
What are you all looking at, like, when you think about, like, because I think that do those relationships change? Does somebody ever get, taken away from the agency, or switch agencies, or decide that they want to do something else that's not in line with the missions or values of your particular creative vision? How does that work?
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely say that's definitely happening. And I think it kind of comes twofold sometimes. I think if I'm to be very honest about where I was as an agent or a businessman running an agency, my maturity level around business at that time wasn't as focused. And this particular artist was extremely focused and really blowing up in her own realm. And she came to me and said, I'm going a different direction. And I had to understand it, you know. I was managing a crew of artists at that particular point in time. And the focus she needed wasn't the focus I was going to be able to give. Does it make you feel some kind of way if you settle in it? But then if you're honest about what somebody needs and then what you were able to deliver, I was like, yeah, I would have made the same move, you know? And it definitely made me grow as a businessman because I was like, you know what? I need to build my agency up to a point where we can handle a talent as they develop up, or artists as they develop up, so they don't feel the need to have to go somewhere with more support, you know? So definitely, and sometimes just artists, creatives, talent, they go through their waves too of creativity and focus and dedication to their craft. And sometimes it's like you're not exactly in the space where you are at your peak. You're at your peak level of performance right now, for many reasons, which is okay, you know. But you have to be honest with that too and say, okay, I'm sure this relationship will come back full cycle at some point. But right now, you might not be the person I actually run to for this particular gig.
And also, it opens up a spot for a new artist.
Well, that's so true.
Yeah,
that's so true. I didn't think about that way, but every time that's happened, there was a new spot where that was able to focus with the resources I had then for somebody who was ready at that level. So you're Zizi, I'm glad you repositioned me on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Our language is different, right? The language is important. Like if I talk about a producer in journalism, it's different than a producer in commercial artwork. Talk about the importance of a producer. What does a producer do?
Man.
What is the
value of having a producer? Do they, does working with a producer increase the quality of the created image?
Yes. Yeah. A producer basically makes sure that your shoot is on point and that permits are pulled, everyone's got their call sheet. You've got the best, hair and makeup and styling and models. Everyone's gotten the creative brief. They're on time now in the day and age of COVID. That's a whole nother nightmare about getting everyone COVID tested and all of the COVID protocols.
Yeah.
So, and it's good. I have like a handful of producers that I work with. Sometimes I produce jobs on my own, but for big ad jobs, love her, Deja.
That's beautiful. I love her gap.
Yeah. And I styled the shoot.
Oh, that's cool.
The stylist couldn't be at the shoot, so I said, just drop the clothes off and I'll be on set and I'll put everything together.
And you did an amazing job with the colors too.
Fantastic.
Thank you. As an agent, also, you have to wear many hats.
That's very true. That's very true. We wear a lot of different hats, and on that level of producer, sometimes I find myself in the producer seat more often than I would like to. But now I really put a lot of intention into finding really good producers to work with projects, because then you go focus on the things you need to focus on, especially if there are a lot of moving pieces, a lot of contracts that need to be situated. You could really handle the back end business right and allow somebody you trust to quarterback the plan. So I really enjoy working with producers, and it just allows the freedom to think.
Ms. Audra, what does the producer do with the actual shooting process, specifically in terms of planning on and off set? Like what are some of the advantages of having that person in your space?
I mean, I am a producer. So I produce all of my own shoots for my clients, and it's crucial. I mean, without a producer, I think everything just kind of falls apart, And a good producer is constantly checking boxes off. Like I can remember many times not sleeping the night before a 6 a.m. call because the record just keeps playing, okay, is that in order? Is this in order? And it is always all in order, but then there's, you just have to balance all of the balls in the air, One of my favorite covers of Queen Latifah, I think she's just such a regal lady, Matthew George Smith.
That's Regal right there.
Yeah. She's a doll. I mean, incredible to work with. Beautiful woman, inside and out. Sinden Collier shot this in Los Angeles at the home of Jill Scott, so that was really interesting for us.
That's beautiful.
So, yeah, we love that one. Yeah,
that's beautiful
Howard
too.
in the studio, Hollywood heartthrob.
Yeah.
Sinden Collier again.
I've seen this image so many times that I've always been drawn to this particular image.
Yeah, there's something really special about how she captured him here. It elevates him, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. The image feels like his voice.
Yeah. Yes. That kind of sensual there, right?
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So I always think that producing a shoot is kind of like hosting a really great party, right? It's like people, places, and things. And if you can get all the people, the places, and the things sorted, then you're great, and you can relax and have a good time, even though your brain keeps working. But you said, you've got to always be ready to jump in and do whatever needs to be done.
But no booze until you're on the last shot.
No what?
No booze.
No booze.
No alcohol.
Unless that's what the artist wants, because
their eyes are bloodshot and they're half asleep.
Okay.
And then
for the talent, for the talent, for the people that are working, no booze.
No booze for the people who are working. But the talent, sometimes they want what they want, and I'm like, as long as you can hold yourself together, I'm not your mama. It's okay. We just got to get to the end of this. But if you need a bottle of champagne, I'll get it for you.
There you go.
Okay.
So I feel like the competition for trying to get representation is fierce, right? Like there are a lot of people who would like to be represented by somebody, especially like when we even think of camera companies, and everybody wants to be an ambassador for somebody, right? How can photographers cut through the crowded field and be noticed?
Honestly, for me, it is making yourself useful outside of the contract you would like me to get for you. So if, let's say, because we do experiences and things outside of producing photo shoots or video shoots, if we're producing an art show or we're doing something in that nature, and you come through and you say, hey, I just want to, I've had this happen before. We produced an experience, or we produced a photo shoot or video shoot, whatever it may have been, and somebody will email me with a set of pictures and say, hey, I was around, I captured some behind the scenes, I just wanted you to see them. And I'm like, yo, I needed that. Thank you so much. And then I look at the rest of their work, I'm like,
wow.
Whoa.
That's
so this
amazing.
image right here is by an immaculate photographer named Dexter Jones. This image is called Envy of the World. It is a symbolism of the power of Blackness and how that has been envied and taken advantage of. But this is like us putting our greatness on display. So we'll take an image like this, and what I would do as an agent, we'll think about all the vertical ways that we can maximize this image, whether it be licensing, whether it be creating prints, limited editions. Is it a short-term activation around the theme of this body of work? And we'll do things of that nature with pieces like this. So this artist, Dexter Jones, he's an immaculate guy. And this is also Dexter Jones's work too. So these bodies of work, what we did is we put them in an art show that we called 5/5. 5/5 was a play on words from the document that said that Black folks were 3/5. So we were presenting ourselves as whole through the bodies of work that felt whole. And so these are some of the things and experiences we will produce around our own body of work to drum up, to really kind of spread the wisdom that is deep within the bodies of work. And then again, the people come who are like, yo, I work for so-and-so. I'm director over here. And we're like, well, let's do business, So there you go.
It's fantastic. Anybody else?
That works gorgeous. I feel
Thank you.
Question, like, how do you cut through the crowd? I'm curious, from Zizi or Audra.
Be polite.
Ooh.
Don't email an agent on a Monday morning or on the weekend.
Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
So true.
That goes a long way. Please and thank you. Go a long way.
Yep. Good morning. Right? Always, start with manners. Just manners.
Yeah.
And I think being persistent, and also I get a lot of questions about how to be a model, and it's kind of frustrating for me because I don't want everyone to be a model. You know, I kind of want everyone to maybe think about working behind the scenes. You know,
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Only option. You know, and I think we're kind of geared towards that direction. You know, people tell young girls, "Oh, you should be a model." No, be a photographer, be a stylist, be a creative director.
Creative,
you know, yeah, because then you get kind of stuck in this fixation about being in front of the camera, and I think it's a limited world. You know.
True. It is a limited world. That is true.
Yeah. This is one of my talent. He went on this audition and booked it on the first go, and I was just so proud of him. You know,
that's so cool.
Yeah, just showed up and got it. So, and he's a kid. You know, he works in the neighborhood. You know, I do a lot of scouting in the neighborhood as a manager. You know, if I get someone who's asking for a guy with a beard and braids, I'm like, oh, I know just the person. You know, he went up against 40 guys with braids and beards, and he's incredibly polite and kind and well-mannered and smart, and he booked it. And I think he'll book a lot more, you know?
That's true.
Audra, can you talk about the role of Instagram and how it's kind of making like its position in terms of where people are finding talent, developing talent, like in booking?
What I'm finding is a lot of the influencers that I'm working with, they have a presence, and they're not just pretty faces. They're people like my good friend Sada Ahmad, who is one of the co-founders of Everyday People, which is like a think tank, you know, and they throw parties, but all the parties kind of gravitate around making a social difference in the world by bringing people together. And Clinique loves her. Diane von Furstenberg loves her. Adidas loves her. G-Shock loves her. Coca-Cola loves her. You know, they just see her face and they hear her story and they want to put her on their Instagram page or make her, you know, the face of the moment for them. I mean, it's kind of, Instagram brings the people to the people, you know, because everyone's scrolling through to see what people are doing. And I think it has a great influence.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as I was thinking about, like, you know, the conversation that we were going to have tonight and thinking about like the benefits, right, of having somebody who's there to represent your work. And then I saw this image and I said, oh, we got to talk about the money. What the advantages are.
Doja Cat, that was editorial for Paper Magazine. But see, these are jobs, and, you know, editorial, like, no, you're not making any money, but you get to be creative as a photographer. And these are the type of jobs that will bring the money jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the pay advantages of having representation, Zizi?
The advantages,
what are some
besides you have someone who will be honest with you and help you do a good edit on your work, the connections. A good agent will cold call and is not afraid to cold call and be persistent. I mean, sometimes it will take me a couple years to get one photographer a meeting with someone at a network. And then maybe 3 years later, you know, hey,
that's fun.
I want to hire your photographer. And then from there, you have an ongoing relationship. I like to say it's the agent's job to get you in with the client, but it's your job to keep the client happy so they book you again.
Oh, this is beautiful right here.
True.
Yeah, I agree. I think on that same question, I think it's the fishing abilities of an agent. You know, the ability to go out and while you're still creating, somebody's fishing for you and themselves at the same time. So.
Okay.
And be honest with your expectations. If your work doesn't look like Vogue or Allure, then don't expect that your agent can, you know, magically like get you into those magazines or with whatever client. If you want to do Reebok or Puma or Adidas, look at the ads, test, and make your work look like that. because if it's very heavily retouched, stiff, don't waste the client's time. As agents, as an agent, I don't want to waste a client's time if I don't feel my talent is appropriate for what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Give me an example, Zizi. Like, where have you seen? Because like we talk about this all the time. We see these people that get these opportunities. First Black person to shoot XYZ magazine, right? And there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. And there's this sense in the photo community. We actually even talked about it last time we talked about greatness in photography, of like the expectations, right? And just the understanding. I think one of the beautiful things this conversation does is have the understanding of that these are teams of people, right? It's not just the photographer and the lights and the artist or the person in front of the camera. It is a team of people. Talk a little bit about like an example that you've seen of somebody who has either proven, right, that they can shoot that type of content, like somebody who has come in and said, okay, here's my Reebok collection of images, and what's made that successful.
Okay, example, I rep Jabari Jacobs, who I took on as a very, young new photographer, who, he done a little bit of work with the labels. I work with all the major labels, and he needed a little, guidance and editing. And I suggested you should do more personal work. Your work is beautiful. You should shoot more fashion. So he is based on the East Coast. When he would come to LA, I would hook him up with a stylist that would test and, we'd look over hair and makeup people. And he really elevated his work a lot just by testing.
Yeah. And are you finding people are testing and putting portfolios up? I might be antiquated, Audra, but is there no more model mayhem? Is there no more play? Like, what is the new updated place to show?
I think all these things still exist. I don't know if it's like the source that it used to be, and maybe Zizi can speak more to this too, because I'm really working with talent from the other side right now, who are influencers primarily and who have something to lend. They're not just, like I said, faces. So we don't do all that model mayhem stuff. Like, we're in a whole nother place. But it does, I think it still exists. Yeah. Model.
I don't use it. I usually reach out to the agencies that I work with and ask to see the new faces. Running a photo studio in New York many years ago, Mario Testino, Peter Lindbergh, David Sims, they would test the new girls that would come to town. And that's how, these girls would get discovered. But I saw big name photographers that didn't have to do tests, but they would have the agencies send me, like 5 new girls that you have.
Yeah.
So, and they kept their work fresh also that way.
Right.
And I think that's really important. What was that, Audra?
They got to experiment a little and play around where they don't have a client kind of demanding.
Exactly. Breathing down your neck. They got to be creative.
Yeah, definitely. We did that when I worked with photo agencies, and, we repped 12 or 15 guys like Eamon McCabe and Hiro Masa, Mike Reinhardt, Philip Newton, Matthew Jordan Smith. They would test all the time. You're absolutely right. And they were excited to test. It was kind of seeing who's new and discovering someone. So yeah, super important.
Yeah, that's cool.
Fantastic. Dom, I'm curious, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing in the industry right now? I mean, in editorial, newsroom staffs are getting cut left and right? Like, what are some of the challenges that are going on in the commercial art space, in the space that you're in, of the industry? What are the challenges?
I would say, if I'm thinking about on a personal level, it's just cutting through the noise. Like, and I'm not saying noise by saying that there's like a lot of under work that's not deserving, but there are, with Instagram, you can kind of connect directly to your talent, or to your next potential business opportunity. So for me, particularly, is thinking about what are those new cutting edge ways of reaching out to new clients. I think one thing that both you ladies just spoke about was keeping work fresh. And I think after somebody has been really in the weeds digging in their creativity for a long time, an artist can get tired of continue to create and not have the opportunities that they're looking for. So it's really motivating an artist to say, hey, listen, keep going though. Like what's on your heart now? What's interesting you now? You know, so go shoot that, and then let's play around with LinkedIn now. You know, let's go to LinkedIn real quick and start using LinkedIn like LinkedIn is Instagram, you know, and start putting up the work samples that we've just accomplished. And then with that, getting that LinkedIn premium account and hitting folks direct and saying, hey, I have a beautiful piece of work I think your company will be interested in. We just completed this project last week. You know, boom, there you guys just wanted you to check it out. So I think for me personally, it's cutting through the noise and figuring out what's the most direct way of being able to get to the decision makers. I think the opportunity is you have these platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram, where you can direct message somebody like right to their DM. You don't have to go through the assistant as much anymore, which I'm finding a lot of the photographers who are newly getting exposed are doing their own fishing using these services, you know. So it's really kind of getting ahead and figuring out how do you stay strategic in a game where you have people who are extremely hungry. And then it's the part about how do you continue to make your crew of artists motivated as they continue to, especially, you know, when you're like 21, 22, you want to create all the time for the sake of creation. When you pass that like 28 mark and you're thinking about bills, family, and life, that could really weigh on your creativity. And you really have to start becoming almost a life coach sometimes to keep the talent, your artists motivated to continue creating things that will garner their attention and keep their work strong. So I think it's motivation, and it's also strategy for pitching and keeping fresh. Your strategy too.
What other challenges exist in the industry, Zizi? What are you thinking?
Challenges?
Yeah, that might exist.
Budgets.
That part.
When you have the clients that want the sun and the moon and the stars, and the first thing I usually ask is, what's the concept? What's the usage? Well, these are three things. What's your budget? Because the emails, I'm sure we've all gotten them. We want 40 retouched images. We have $1,000 all in. That includes the photographer fee, everything. They assume that the photographers have their own studios, own all their own equipment. Yeah,
that used to be the case like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you know, but that's not the case. I always start with what's your budget? You know, I want to know the budget and your usage, particularly dealing with talent. If I have an influencer or a talent who's going to be the subject of your images, like what are you willing to spend to have her face represent your brand? You know, how much is it worth? How much is it worth for you? Because, you know, that's all we.
Oh, frozen.
Say that again, Miss Audra. We lost you for the second part.
We just need to know like what you're willing to invest in, you know, because, you know, for years I dealt with models who were getting paid, you know, extraordinary fees to just show up and put the you know, Zizi, you guys know, to just show up and be the face. So that's what I want for my people too. You know, if she's going to be in front of the camera and representing your brand, like what are you doing as a man? Producer, it's a different conversation because you're always working backwards.
Yeah.
Right. Give us a sense of like, because I think like I know like D Dryer was on the call. Like, give us a sense of like, what is a high end budget for a shoot, right? Like, because like high end to me is like a couple $1,000s, right? I mean, I can make something work, but I know I'm completely wrong because I'm a photojournalist, right?
Right.
It can be anywhere from 100,000 and up. It depends on how many talent or who's paying for the talent and basically the usage. And it depends on the client. Sometimes photographers will do a smaller, lower budget job because it's cool and it looks good in their portfolio and it's fun to do.
Right.
Yeah. I think right now where I sit in the marketplace, I'm seeing a lot of folks in my arena start hitting, as photographers particularly, not for the entire production of the shoot, right?
Yeah, I was talking about the entire production.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But just photographer fees, I'm starting to see folks hit that 15, 20 range, which is interesting. You know, I'm like, oh, that's really cool, because I come from a very on the ground level of art where, you know, you may do a job for $1,000, $500, $2,000, and I'm just now seeing my friends break that point where they're getting budgets that can last them for 2 months. You know, they can chill for 2-3 months and maybe work on a personal project.
They shouldn't chill.
They shouldn't chill. There you go. But yeah,
keep creating.
Right. But they can relax. The bills are paid for a month or two, and they can feel like it was worth it.
But clients always need to see what you're up to. So if you just made a ton of money and you feel like, well, I don't have to do anything for 2 months, you should still be creating, even if it's photographing your neighbors, you know, personal project.
Very true.
You
Very true.
have to keep in touch with them, so you're always on their mind. Okay, what is meant by usage? How they're using the photos.
Okay, so to give us an example, like just for the print product, for the website, what are we talking about?
All of the above. I mean, usually a client will come with a media plan or a purchase plan for the images. And I mean, for example, one of my clients was hired to do something that started out as, you know, 2 Instagram posts. And it grew from 2 Instagram posts, for which we negotiated her fee, to billboards, bus, sides of the bus, wrap around at the bus shelter, in-store posters. There were more usages added on as they kind of decided how much they love these pictures. So we renegotiated for that usage package. But there's always an intention of how the client is going to use the images. It can be as simple as editorial. It can be catalog, direct mail. It can be out of home, packaging, you know, and all of those, every single item has a price. Every line item has a $ attached to it. So nothing's all in unless it's a buyout, right? And then a buyout, you've still got to list every single usage, every country you're going to use it in, and for how long you're going to use it. For example, Coca-Cola, they purchased imagery over and over again, and every time the regions expanded, so they had to pay for every region. And if it's 6 months in Nigeria and 4 months in Ghana, you know that you got to pay for that. It's not
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And for like new photographers, ask the usage, ask how many final images, and also send the client an estimate stating that, also with your line items, how much is your assistant? A lot of clients, sometimes they come to you with these all in, and I know a lot of photographers also do this, where they'll just, okay, I'll do the whole thing for $10,000. But I like to break it down by fee and how much everything costs. So
of course,
clients are aware. And get an estimate and make them sign it.
Yeah, deal memo or some kind of agreement. It's not just on anybody's word or an email. Like, you have to have a formal agreement.
Yeah, and that protects you. If you agreed to only like social media usage and all of a sudden you're seeing your image on a billboard, you've got your signed estimate or deal memo, then you can go back to the client and say, hey, you know, now we need to discuss additional usage.
Yes.
Yeah. And the duration is very important too, because if someone buys your image for 6 months and they run it for 2 years, you know, there's additional usage due to you. That actually happened to me with a personal project that, you know, was supposed to run for 2 months. And someone called me from Barbados and said, oh, your commercial is running in all the movie theaters here in Barbados.
Like, what?
Not supposed to do that. So I was able to negotiate after the fact, and actually it worked out because they were already using it. That was, you know, They were liable for a lawsuit if they didn't renegotiate with me because they already had the usage in play.
I think this is
But I'd never find out.
No, that I think it's fascinating because there's a lot of, I think in a lot of times, and this goes into the next question, but like we don't know those things, especially if you're coming from an editorial background or something like that. You're just happy to sign a contract,
read the contract,
read it.
And if you don't understand wording, Google it. Because some clients will try and sneak things in.
Absolutely.
They may find an estimate that is certain usage that everyone has agreed to, but then you read the contract and they're sneaking in a full buyout or what have you. So,
and I think that you have to be a bit fearless to protect yourself. You have to not be afraid to ask these questions. Well, that's where an agent or a manager really is important, because we are fearless and we will ask these questions and we will make these demands on your behalf. And it's important as an artist, I think, that you have someone who protects you. Not only from clients, but from yourself sometimes. Because you're excited and you want to get your images out there, but sometimes you have to pull back and make sure you're getting what you're worth. So it's okay to question. You have to ask questions.
Absolutely. Do photographers generally undersell themselves then? This is a not my thing that I think that we don't talk about often, because as somebody pointed out in the chat, we don't talk about fees. Right? Like, is there a way, and shout out to Denise James, Philly in the house, how do you learn the rates of these different things? Did you just, do you have a system? Is there, do you all talk to each other?
I actually do. I have a few art buyer friends. Sometimes I'm not sure what I should be quoting for a fee, so I'll reach out to people in the business that I know, maybe another agent that I'm friendly with. Sometimes it's, you just have to guess. There's no set. The first question is, what's your all-in budget? Do you have that? From there, and the usage, how many images, what does it include? And then from there, you can kind of gauge it. But if they want all this crazy stuff and then your fee ends up being $2,000, sometimes you just have to do an estimate and say, I know that you said this is how much you have, but this is what it's really going to cost.
Right. Yeah. Right. I think that's fair, because they do need to see real numbers based on what things really do cost. There's some negotiation as a producer that we have, we can get deals and use favors, but there's real numbers, and everyone needs to be paid what it's worth. In the market. Yeah. But for influencers, sometimes I just, I wing it, if they come and they want to do Adidas and they say we have 10,000, I'm like, can you do 12,500? You just push it a little bit and be prepared to, be flexible, but you always assume that they're underbidding.
I learned this because I have one of my best friends is an art buyer. She always gives me a lower amount. I'm always like, yeah, okay, I'm going to ask for more. And then one day I realized, well, she's an art buyer. It is her job to get the best price.
Yes. And it's your job to get the best price. So
literally.
Where can you
be the lowest?
Yeah, for her the lowest and for you the most. So where can you meet kind of in the middle and everyone walk away feeling like, okay, we accomplished something, and
we go high. That's right.
That's it.
I want to encourage everybody to please put your questions in the chat. I want to make sure that we get to some of our audience questions. Another question came from Miss Francesca Scott, and it was answered by Mr. Brian Price. Shout out to Mr. Brian Price in here talking about Photo Quote as a resource. So thank you. Like Obsidian Project, we're about tangible resources, and so check out Photo Quote. And Miss Francesca Scott asked, can you talk about basic usage fee?
That's a hard one, because you have to know how many images do they want? Who is the client?
Yeah.
Sure. Is it like a small indie clothing company, or is it a big retailer? Are you shooting for a small indie cosmetic company, or are you shooting a huge celebrity for Sephora? If it's a big celebrity and it's a big company, you're going to ask for more money. But sometimes the cool jobs are like the small indie you know?
Very true. Very
Yeah,
true.
I think that's why it's always fair to ask, what is your budget?
Yeah.
Sure. Dom, do
You
you
know,
think like
I feel like an awkward question. It really cuts through a lot of stuff. It cuts through a lot of crap.
It does.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of back
Yeah.
and forth emails can be cut with that question right there. Yeah, what's the budget? What you
And if
working with?
people are honest and clear and don't get scared by the question, I think it's a very fair question, you know? Like, what kind of money do you have? Let's work backwards from that.
Yes.
Agreed.
And those scales, right? Editorial versus commercial. Do you find one is typically like, you know, how do those two things compare? Is it editorial budget typically lower? Is it higher?
The term, and it's called editorial poor.
Yeah.
So, and I know Audra, I'm sure Dominic knows this, that photographers that shoot nothing and nothing but editorial, that's the term. The editorial will get you seen, but the commercial jobs, that's where the money is.
Gotcha.
And you do the editorial to build your book, to build those images, to build your experience, to show those commercial clients. I think, especially back in the day, that's everybody did editorial. Some people travel to Europe or Australia to build their books, come back to New York and have 100 pages that you just shot for Australia Now, you know?
Yeah.
So
editorials, no money. It's all just creativity. And
when I was a hair and makeup agent in New York, and we worked with Italian Vogue a lot, the editorial rate for hair and makeup for Italian Vogue, $75 a day.
Wow.
And then you have the whole, it's coming from Italy payment, and they're taking whatever percent and the wiring fee, but
wiring fee.
You're working for Italian Vogue.
Right, and you're going to come away with 20 pages of
Exactly.
beautiful images. So that's why people shoot editorial, you know, to build that beautiful book. I 100% believe in editorial. I think it's like the freest you'll ever get in creativity and for all of the players in the game.
Yes.
Audra,
And I want to throw, Jared, I want to throw a middle ground in there between editorial and commercial. There are these mid-tier companies who are, they're not, they don't traditionally put a lot of thought into their media. So it may be like a pharmaceutical company who's looking to produce their first campaign, you know? And what I realize is if you bring a high quality talent to a company who needs to communicate with their customers, but usually does not, is not used to working in the realm of editorial or commercial, they usually have a pretty significant budget, and they're not used to what the photo world is used to as far as rates. So you could kind of name your own price there and say, you may have to come to them with a concept. It's a different strategy for fishing for clients, but you may say, hey, listen, I know you you may be one of the biggest nonprofits in the city, and you have a big campaign coming up. I have an idea for you, you know, and this is the X amount of dollars it may cost. And I've found a lot of space in that realm of working with those mid-tier companies who most folks would not even think they have photographic or videographer needs. And for me, that has become the bread and butter. When the editorial or the commercial is not there, that work is like very consistent. And let's be honest and talk numbers, because I think this is that kind of platform we were educating people.
Yes.
Those budgets sometimes range, you know, they may range into like the 6,000 to 7,000, the 5 to 7. And, you know, and you just adjust the level of production you're going to do for those shoots, and you make sure your margins make sense. And that has become a great, I guess, slice of business for me too.
Okay, interesting. So I'm about to set the chat on fire with this question, and I think it's a good one. Should you ever work for free? Should photographers ever work for free, and if so, under what circumstances?
Ooh.
We talked about editorial.
I'm going to say yes.
I'm gonna say yes too.
I
say yes.
Say yes, yes. Everybody, yes is all around. Okay.
Yeah, under what circumstances, ladies? Under Zizi, under what circumstances would you advise somebody to work for free?
If you need to build your book, and if it's something that you feel that you can really create with, I have, I'll fund tests for my photographers. That shot of Deja with the orange, the neon, that was a test shoot.
Yep.
My photographer, I was like, you need like something new and bright and colorful. So I was like, I'll pay for the studio. I'll buy the, food, pay for the assistant, get you a stylist. And that was a test shoot.
That's cool. See,
I
that's
lost
cool.
money on it. And I've done it, a number of times where I'll fund because as an agent, I know that, okay, this photographer needs more of this. So I'm going to reinvest and fund it.
Yeah.
And make it look good.
Yeah, I agree.
It's new work to put on Instagram, social media, and most importantly, to show clients.
So how do you use that and leverage that to market on the back end, Miss Audra? Like, is that a thing? Like, how would you leverage that work then?
You show everybody, like you do with any job, I think Zizi's talking about something very specific too, the testing, which we encourage everyone to keep shooting and being creative. But I think, was your question more like working for free for a client or a specific request that just doesn't have the budget
I got you.
to do it? Those are two very different things.
True.
Testing, like, everybody should be shooting somehow, some way. Like, that's incredibly generous what Zizi does. And I applaud it. I think when you're talking about shooting for free for a client who just maybe doesn't have the money, like maybe they have $2,000 and that'll pay for your favored studio. You get a favor, or you shoot outside, or you somehow make that 2,000 hit production needs, but the photographer can't walk away with the fee because the money's just not there. That's a different question. Because the client is still going to get what they need, right? So you're shooting for someone else for free. Different.
Make sure you get on-page credit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Meaning what? Break that down for me. What does on-page credit mean?
That your name is on the images. Sometimes you get pushed back.
Sure.
But it usually, you can get them to do it. Put the photographer's Instagram handle.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. I think, Audra, I think you hit something very important where it's the creating for creativity's sake. And that's where I was thinking about where the free comes from. And Zizi, I think you were hitting on that too, where you were like, yo, if I'm gonna create for myself, because I feel like I want to do this for my client or for myself. I think sometimes there's like two modes of production exist. One where you just feel something in your soul and your heart, and you're like, I feel like seeing this in the world, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to put my money into a shoot to make this thing happen. I think if you do that, you should do it at the quality of the work that you still want to get hired for. So when you do produce for yourself, you can then leverage that as a marketing material for potential work in the future. But I heavily believe in just creating for yourself to keep your eyes sharp, to keep your spirit fluid, to keep your creative juices moving. And then what I found though in that is a lot of cats who move that way, and that's kind of how I encourage artists to move. You take that, you create at the highest capacity you can for yourself, and then you package that for the client too. And I was just doing this because I felt like doing this. You don't have to tell them that. Maybe you do. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But you say, here's my capabilities, and then now you have something, like you said, Zizi, that you have fresh work always coming out. One of you two said it is like the client should always see you working. People should always be top of mind, Yeah. And if there's a dry spell in whatever market you play in, I would hate for somebody to believe that their creativity needs to stop at that point. And it's like, oh, keep going because something's going to hit for you. And that's also why I really enjoy being creative with business structure too, because let's say you create for yourself and it's an amazing series of work. Okay, let's put it up for sale. All right, maybe there was no client for it. All right, what's when we produce our art shows, sometimes we'll create in a series, right? So one image may have 30 or 40 series to it. This is more of a contemporary artwork game, right? We go, okay, that image is amazing. Let's do 30 editions of that image. We're going to price it at $1,200, for 24 by 36 or whatever the size may be. And you sell that 20 times, you just made your 20 bands right there. And that was something you did for fun or for the love of it, you know? And that's how a lot of our, especially early in Tunnel Vision's history, we've been playing this a more direct service game now.
Sure.
But and we want to get back to that spin because that's more controlled by the producer. You're like, all right, do we have a client base? Do we know art buyers? Do we know anybody who we can educate on why it's cool to collect this body of work? All right, yeah, let's go ahead and do that and put that up for an affordable price. You know, whatever affordable may be to your client base, and then now you brought in some cash. You didn't have to break it off too many times, and I like moving that way too.
Yeah, we talked a little bit also about like how you can protect yourself as an artist. Like I think I had an issue where I shot this series of work and it was about Black Greek letter organizations. And this one image against this white background of this brother throwing up the hooks for Omega Psi Phi ended up being on every party flyer, every website. And I had no idea how to protect myself in that instance. Talk about the importance of copywriting your work. and agents, is that something that you all provide as agents? Or just that understanding of like that part of the business?
Well, that's in this day and age, if it's a client that you've worked with, you've done, the shoot for, and as we discussed before, they're using it in a manner that wasn't agreed to. That's one thing. But I have to be honest, in this day and age, can pull anything off the internet.
Anything.
Retouch out watermarks. Oops. I had a publicist years ago, like screaming at me because there were images on a fan site of their talent, and how dare your photographer release these? And basically, they went on like Getty on a syndication site, pull them off. These kids know how to retouch, and they retouch the watermark out.
Wow.
So, I don't know that.
Yeah, you can't control that. I think you have to, particularly like Zizi said, I mean, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. If your client uses your image in a way that wasn't agreed to, that's one thing. But if your image is in the public domain and somebody takes your image as the one you mentioned, for example, and uses it on party flyers, that's so out of your control. You
have a pre-written cease and desist letter.
Yeah, you can send them, but I mean, unless you're really going to carry it to the level of a lawsuit against this little party planner over in town at a college campus. I mean, it's kind of a flattery in a weird way. Like, your image is so dynamic that everybody wants to use it. I mean, look at Baron Claiborne's image of Biggie with the crown. That was everywhere. That was snatched up and used by everyone for everything.
Murals and all. Yeah.
There's only so much you can really do, and then you kind of got to say, okay, you just let
it go. Yeah.
I think I'm sorry for cutting anybody off. I just cut somebody off. I'm sorry. I think there's an interesting development within. They're using it more in the contemporary art space, but people are talking about a conversation around NFTs, non-fundable tokens, and I think the technology behind that allows for you to. I'm not going to say per se it doesn't allow your image to be mimicked because somebody can still screenshot, but that digital file can be traced back to its origin, and that creator can put a fee every time that image is transferred digitally because it has an ID that cannot be replicated. So I think in thinking about what does digital ownership look like in the future, it's being more educated around what is this blockchain housing artwork look like. So every time it's transferred, it can only be transferred through its digital code. And I think there is something there that's gonna shake up how easy it is to just snatch an image, unless you, again, like you said, it's in the public domain. You put it on Instagram and then you can just screenshot that bad boy, But if you give somebody something that's particular for them, you can trace that. And say, anytime you sell that image, I already put into the code my percentage when that image is transferred. And I think that is somewhere where I know I'm focusing my energy in part in learning and also, gaining my Rarible accounts and figuring out how to move in that space. Again, it's a little more of a contemporary art space play, but I think it's also valuable in many ways, especially thinking about transferring an image to a client and being like, well, I want to make sure I know exactly where you sent that to, and you could trace that back. And before it gets too big, you could say, hold on, I didn't authorize that, you know?
Right.
So, because a ledger that goes with the image.
Yeah.
I think that's important for us too in this age, but I'm learning myself. So, but that's where I put in my energy right now. And when it comes to the ownership or the licensing of the image, you know?
Yeah, we don't have a whole other conversation about that, I think, because NFTs are fascinating, and the idea of like digital literacy, right, in terms of photography and how those things have changed is really interesting.
Yeah.
Y'all see a lot of work. You see hundreds of thousands of images. Has the aesthetic changed? Yeah. What is like? I would ask, like, what are some of the things that you think are popping right now? What are the things that are hot right now? What are you seeing?
Minimal retouching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything in camera perfect. Wow.
And loose.
Black people are really popular right now.
Photography. What, Audra?
Black people.
Black people.
Yeah, black people.
About it.
Yeah,
Agreed.
we're really popular right now. They're using us to sell everything from real estate to shoelaces to toothpaste, and you know, it's great. Yeah, we can do that for now. I just think, you know, how is it going to maintain the momentum? And, you know, is it informative, or is it are we going to be able to control, you know, that power that we have, and really, you know, not just be kind of tokens for the moment. But yeah, black people are very popular right now.
Yeah.
Is that aesthetic rising? Is it getting better, you think, because there's such an emphasis on making everything perfect in camera?
Say that one more time, please.
Do you feel like the aesthetic, the quality of imagery is rising because of this aesthetic of having everything perfect in camera?
I think the accessibility to high quality cameras is making imagery a bit more. The accessibility to cameras that shoot high quality, like literally on your phone, you can shoot something that look like somebody had $7,000 camera. You get that same image in your phone nowadays. Sometimes, I think the accessibility of Lightroom and Photoshop being affordable at $10 to $15 a month. I think the accessibility of people on TikTok, YouTube, giving information about how to make an image quality and to industry standard. So what I'm seeing a lot of people produce things on their on their sideline play. I'm just playing around that you would think it was already ready for a magazine. They're like, yeah, that was on my iPhone. I just like retouched it from this YouTube thing I learned. And I'm like, dang, like that was on your iPhone? What iPhone is that? 30? Like, what happened there? You know? So I think I'm seeing higher quality images. You know, I believe when I was really taking my photography craft very seriously. Now it's like maybe 10 years ago, I was really deep diving into it. To produce a quality image, it costs you some money, man. It costs you, and I can only imagine sliding back even a couple years before that it costs you bread. You know, to shoot with an iPhone to shoot now, you spent minimum $4,000 on the camera to get that same quality image. And now you bought your iPhone for, you know, $80 a month, and you got something where, boom, game has changed. You know,
but for social media, so
good point.
Big clients, you know, that hire these social media celebrities to go shoot. What was it? The Burberry campaign. Beckham's son shot with his iPhone.
Oh, I wasn't familiar with that. How did it turn out?
A couple of years ago.
Yes.
And what if they want to use that on a billboard?
Right.
So what looks good on Instagram, this big.
True.
How are you going to be able to, create something that a client is going to need to put on the side of a building?
Good point.
Good point.
Good point. And I may be wrong here, and so this is not a direct juxtaposition of what you're saying, but I think even technology is starting to get to that point now, where you can shoot the amount of information you can intake on your camera phone can be blown up. Now, is it like shooting on film? No, nothing's like shooting on film. You know, but there are programs that can essentially vector your image to be as big as you may want it to be. And I think that is, yeah, and that's
because I know that photographers, when we're bidding on jobs, and if a client says, you know, it's only for social media and web, blah, 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 that I have to go back and say, are you sure? You know, that the photographer needs to, and I'm not a photographer, but you know, a certain type of a camera. Like, are they going to want to put this on billboards? You know, if so, then I need to rent this camera because I don't need that one.
True.
Yeah, there's a growing market of computational photography, right? And taking in a lot of information, even through your iPhone. Like even your iPhone shoots RAW now, right? And there's also yes, there is a segment of technology that has this, like, I can't remember. I was trying to look it up real quick and see who it was, but there was an article on PedalPixel the other day. But still, the point remains that if you can't, the skill sets are different, right? Being able to produce something for social media is a lot different than producing something for a billboard. And how do you, you know, kind of be in that space where you can do both and be versatile?
And then there's still the aesthetic of a photo shoot. You know, like if I'm dealing with like a high profile client, I don't want you to come with your cell phone, even if you can produce the same image that somebody could produce with a big boy camera. You know, I want the look. You want the lights. You want the feel. You want the person in front to feel like this is not the everyday scenario. I think there is something about how a person feels in front of the camera. Like, whoa, this is all for me. You're going to get a different level of energy from that person than if you break out your phone. It's like, and my mom did that yesterday. Like, wait, hold on. This is not the birthday party. So I get that too, though. I get that too.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, look, I want to make sure that we have time for the audience to ask any last questions, and also to make sure that we talk any last formal ideas or thoughts or things that you want to say to folks about just this beautiful opportunity for what you all do, and any tips you want to give to people out there who are interested in doing this type of work. And so, Dom, I'll start with you. What last thoughts, tips you give people before we wrap?
I would say find your art community. If you're an artist, particularly, find an art community of people who are consistently creating. I think that's the fastest way to sharpen your skill set to a point where you can get to a magazine cover, or you could get to a commercial ad, or you could get to an editorial piece. I think you have to entrench yourself in the folks who are just creating for creativity's sake, but know where you want to go. So you are studying those who have crossed over that business line to where they could live off the income from their photography. So find the community, really dig in real heavy. I mean, I think there's something to say about keeping your spirit balanced, keeping your energy balanced, so that you can, I think a lot of the best ideas I have found from creatives come when they're in a space of peace and calm. And then you could translate that then to how you work with a client. So if I come and give you an experience that's peaceful, that's fun, that's enjoyable, and somebody else comes and brings you a high stress experience, who's going to get the return client, you know? So I think there's something to be said about the way you carry yourself, the way you self-regulate, and also your emotional, spiritual intelligence, so you can channel those brilliant ideas when you want to. You know, there's something to be said about being able to still your mind and ask for a creative vision, and then pop up, boom, you're like, I know what we're doing next week, and it's brilliant, you know? And then there's a stressful way to do that too. I'd rather not do it the stressful way. And also think about the experience you bring your client. I will honestly say there's been times where I could be honest and say the end product wasn't the best in the field, but the experience was maybe the best the client had. And they're like, "Y'all want to work with you again." And the next time we brought the heat, you know? So really back to how we talked about in the beginning, be polite, be courteous, be, you know, a friend to your client in a sense. And I think you'll have a lot of repeat customers that way if you're looking to look this down from a business perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Miss Audra.
Right. My advice is super simple, you know, figure out what it is you like to do most. What makes you happy in terms of the images that you create, the energy you create, and stick with that, you know, that just be yourself in your most creative way. don't copy or be over influenced by who's popular right now.
Agreed.
That's only going to last for a minute. Like, you've really got to find your niche. And some of it does come from, like Dom said, finding your creative community that nurtures you and kind of buffers you and keeps you busy and whole. But I think you really got to figure out what it is you love and pursue that. Just keep creating, shoot, even if it's just taking your point and shoot out in the neighborhood. Someone said earlier, just shoot your neighbors, shoot trees, shoot flowers. You'll always do something different.
Agreed. I very much agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree too. Keep shooting. Keep your work fresh. If you feel like you're in a rut, go for a drive. Drive to another town. Because I've seen a lot of photographers do that, where they're just shooting the same thing. And people, also clients, they want to see that you are, what's the word, evolving. So,
That's fair.
Try something new. And be very aware of what images that you're using. Don't have a lot of filler. Client doesn't need to see
edit your
shot, the same setup like 8 times in your portfolio.
Ooh, that's good. That's a good piece of advice. That's a great piece of advice.
Because I've seen and it looks like filler. It's like, okay, you have this girl in the same red blouse against a blue wall like 8 times. Mix it up.
I think you can never repeat.
Yeah. But I think a lot of young photographers don't realize that.
Right. But that's part of editing it first, before you shoot it and after you shoot it.
Yeah. Do a mood board. Come up with a mood board. What's your color theme? What do you want your makeup and styling to look like? Are you going to shoot, against seamless paper or location? Plan your shoots out. And, sometimes things happen and you just kind of have to go with the flow. We've all had to do that. It worked.
And you don't have to spend a lot of money to be creative. Zizi just talked about a backdrop. A backdrop can be almost anything that's vibrant and lends something to the picture. It doesn't have to be paper that you pay for and gets, thrown away at the end of the day. Think outside the box a little bit.
Amazon.
Yeah, for real. And Zizi, I think you pointed on you touched on something that I kind of want to put a pin in too, because I think this is when I see the work of photographers really develop. When you start using stylists and you start using makeup artists and you start thinking about the entire production in as a whole, but also in pieces, and say, okay, I don't have to style her. There may be somebody who's an amazing stylist, maybe amazing hair and makeup. There may be an amazing lighting specialist. And then you could really have fun creating with a team. And I think that the quality of the image and the creativity is greater when there's multiple minds on one photo.
Yes.
So I think
absolutely. Absolutely. So it's important to build your team as well, as well as your community. That's an excellent piece of advice. And everyone's starting from somewhere, right? So maybe it's that kid who likes to do makeup, or her is always beautiful. She works at your supermarket or around the corner somewhere. You talk to people. See, everybody's trying to fulfill their dream. You never know who. Some stylish girl you see on the subway who's a student at FIT, she could be your next great stylist, right? It's like the whole world is out there trying to get somewhere. Maybe
you go to the Mac store.
Maybe incredible.
They find images. They want to quit and they want to become freelance makeup artists.
Right? Sephora.
Yep.
Yeah, very true. That's really great strategy right there.
And that funky kid you see working at H&M or at Urban Outfitters,
No, it's true.
This is your possible future team.
Yeah. Very true.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Be bold.
Be bold. I like that. That's a good note right there. Be bold.
Y'all are so fantastic, man. Thank you. It is my honor and a privilege to really have these conversations, and I'm just thankful for all the conversation, for all the topics that we talked about today. So I just wanted to say thank you from the Obsidian Project. You all are really appreciated.
This is a great platform, brother. So please keep doing this, and I'm gonna make sure I tune in for the rest. And ladies, I have honestly learned so much in this conversation, and I'm gonna make it a point to stay in contact with you all, because the wealth of information you hold is something that is gonna grow me too. So I'm grateful for y'all.
Yes, it's
Coming to you
precious.
for
All of you.
art advice. I know nothing about the art industry.
Yeah.
Respect.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Our next conversation is going to be happening on May the 14th. It is part 3 of our What is Great Photography session and conversation series of conversations dealing with some of the young photographers out here who are just kind of like dipping their toe in the game. And so we're really excited about that. So part 3, Great Photography, coming after this fantastic. And I think that ends our first season as well. Our first season of Project Story. So we're really excited and just thankful for all of the beautiful people that are here. Thanks everyone for joining. We will see you soon.
All right.
You guys don't go anywhere. I will be right back, okay?
Okay, stay here.
Stay
Okay.
here.